Thomas Wade had been a lot of things in his 42 years. A ship captain, a husband, a father. But after the accident that took his family 3 years ago, he'd become something else. A man running from memories. A man looking for isolation. A man willing to take a job that nobody else wanted. The job posting had been simple. Lighthouse keeper needed. Sentinel Rock station, 6-month contract, room and board provided. Must be comfortable with extreme isolation. The pay was good. Better than good. Almost suspicious. But Thomas didn't care about the money. He cared about being alone. About being somewhere his memories couldn't follow him. The supply boat dropped him at Sentinel Rock on a gray Tuesday morning in October. The island was exactly what he expected. A chunk of black stone rising from the Atlantic, maybe 200 feet across at its widest point. No trees. No vegetation. Just rock and the lighthouse standing at its center like a white finger pointing at the sky. The captain of the supply boat, a grizzled man named Hendricks, helped Thomas unload his supplies. 3 months of food. Fuel for the generator. Fresh water tanks. Books. Everything he'd need to survive until the next supply run. "You sure about this?" Hendricks asked, eyeing the lighthouse with obvious discomfort. "It's not too late to come back with me." Thomas looked up at the lighthouse. It was old, probably built in the 1800s, its white paint peeling in places, showing dark stone beneath. The beacon at the top was dark now, waiting for nightfall. Windows dotted the tower at irregular intervals like black eyes watching the ocean. "I'm sure," Thomas said. Hendricks shrugged. "Your funeral. The last keeper, Marcus Webb, he only lasted 3 weeks. Left all his stuff. Said he'd rather lose the deposit than spend another night here." "Did he say why?" Hendricks was quiet for a moment, his eyes on the lighthouse. Said the light was wrong. "Whatever that means." Said things came out of the water at night. Said the previous keeper before him left a journal. Told him to read it. He paused. Marcus said he wished he hadn't. Thomas felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October wind. "Where's the journal now?" "Still up there, I imagine." Marcus didn't take anything with him. "Just got on the boat when I came for the supply run and refused to go back even for his wallet." Hendricks handed Thomas a radio. "This is for emergencies only. Battery's good for about 2 months. Coast Guard monitors the frequency. If something happens, if you need to leave, you call. I'll come get you, no questions asked." "Nothing's gonna happen?" Thomas said, more to convince himself than Hendricks. "Right." Hendricks climbed back into his boat. "I'll be back in 3 months. January 15th. Try to still be alive." The boat pulled away, its engine loud against the constant sound of waves crashing against rock. Thomas watched it disappear into the gray distance, and then he was alone, truly alone. No neighbors, no traffic, no voices. Just the wind, the waves, and the lighthouse. The door to the lighthouse was unlocked. Thomas pushed it open and stepped inside. The interior was exactly what he expected from a structure built over a century ago. Stone walls, a spiral staircase winding up through the center, rooms branching off at different levels. The air smelled of salt and dampness and something else. Something Thomas couldn't quite identify. Not decay, exactly. More like age. Like the building had been standing here so long it had developed its own scent. The ground floor was the living area. A small kitchen with a gas stove. A table and 2 chairs. A wood burning stove for heat. Shelves lined one wall filled with canned food, tools, and supplies. A doorway led to a small bedroom with a narrow bed and a dresser. Thomas climbed the spiral stairs. The second level was a storage area, packed with fuel cans, spare parts for the beacon, coils of rope, and emergency flares. The third level was the watch room with windows on all sides giving a 360-degree view of the ocean. A desk sat against one wall, covered in charts, logs, and a thick leather-bound book, the journal. Thomas picked it up. The leather was worn smooth, the pages yellowed with age. The first entry was dated 1923. The handwriting was careful, precise. Day 1. Arrived at Sentinel Rock. The lighthouse is in good condition. Beacon operational. Weather clear. No issues to report. Thomas flipped through the pages. Years of entries. Different handwritings. Different keepers documenting their time on the island. Most entries were routine. Weather reports. Ships spotted. Maintenance performed. But as Thomas reached the more recent entries, the tone changed. An entry from 2019, the light in the water again tonight. 3rd time this week. Always in the same pattern. Moving in circles about half a mile out. Too deep for boats. Too bright for bioluminescence. Don't know what it is. 2020. Found dead fish on the rocks this morning, dozens of them. But they weren't torn apart by birds or crabs. They were frozen solid. How is that possible in August? 2021. Something scratched at the door last night. Deep gouges in the wood. Whatever made them had claws. Big ones. There are no animals on this island. Nothing lives here except me. And I don't think I'm alone anymore. The last entry was from Marcus Webb, dated 3 weeks ago. I'm leaving. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the contract. Something is wrong with this place. The previous keeper was right. The lighthouse isn't here to guide ships to safety. It's here for something else. Something in the water. Something that's been waiting for a very long time. If you're reading this, if you're the new keeper, get out. Get out before the fog comes. Get out before you see the lights. Get out before they start climbing. Thomas felt his hands shaking. He closed the journal and looked out the window. The ocean stretched in every direction, gray and endless. Nothing moved on the surface. No boats. No birds. Nothing. He was being ridiculous. Marcus Webb had clearly lost his mind from isolation. People went crazy alone. That was a known thing. The journal was just the paranoid ramblings of men who'd spent too long with only their thoughts for company. Thomas climbed to the top level. The beacon room. The massive Fresnel lens sat in the center, surrounded by the mechanism that would rotate it, sending its beam across the water. Thomas checked the fuel reservoir. Full. He checked the rotation gears. Well, maintained. Everything was in working order. He waited for sunset, reading through the lighthouse manual, learning the routines he'd need to follow. Light the beacon at dusk. Monitor it through the night. Extinguish it at dawn. Keep the lens clean. Log any ships that passed. Simple work. Mindless work. Exactly what he needed. Dusk came quickly, the sun dropping below the horizon like it was being pulled under. Thomas lit the beacon. The flame caught, grew, and the lens began to rotate, throwing its beam across the darkening water. And that's when Thomas saw them, lights in the water. About half a mile out, just like the journal had said. But they weren't random. They were moving in a pattern. Circles. Slow, deliberate circles. And they were bright. Too bright. Not like anything natural. Thomas grabbed the binoculars from the wall and focused on the lights. He could see them more clearly now. They pulsed, like they were breathing, like they were alive, and as he watched, they began to move. Not away. Toward the island, his radio crackled. Static. And then, impossibly, a voice. Sentinel Rock. Sentinel Rock. This is the merchant vessel Atlantic Dawn. We see your light. We're coming in. Thomas grabbed the radio. Atlantic Dawn, this is Sentinel Rock. Identify your position. More static. Then, following your light. Almost there. Thank you for guiding us home. Thomas looked out the window. There was no ship. The ocean was empty. But the lights in the water were getting closer. Atlantic Dawn, there is no safe harbor here. Repeat, no safe harbor. This is a lighthouse on an isolated rock. Where is your position? The voice on the radio changed, got lower, older, like multiple voices speaking at once. We know where you are, keeper. We've always known. The light calls to us. It always has. And we always answer? The radio went dead. Thomas stared at the lights. They were less than a quarter mile away now, still moving in those slow, deliberate circles. And beneath the lights, he could see shapes. Dark masses moving just below the surface. Large, too large. A sound echoed across the water. Not quite a voice, not quite a song. Something between the two. It made Thomas's skin crawl, made his head hurt, made him want to throw open the door and walk down to the water's edge. He forced himself to look away, to step back from the window. He was alone. Isolated. His mind was playing tricks on him. That's all this was. Tricks. But then he heard it. A sound from below. From the base of the lighthouse. Scratching. Something with claws was climbing the rocks. And it was getting closer. Thomas looked at the journal on the desk. At Marcus Webb's final warning. Get out before they start climbing. The scratching grew louder. Closer. And Thomas realized with cold certainty that he'd made a terrible mistake coming here. The lighthouse wasn't abandoned because of isolation. It was abandoned because something lived in the water around it. And now that something knew he was here.